You don't have to be a risk specialist to be a CS. However, for you to be a good CS, corporate secretary, you must understand the risk framework within which the company is operating in.
You're right.
A CS is supposed to be a trusted advisor.
You're right.
The board members are supposed to walk into that boardroom and feel that you have their back. That you raise issues when issues are going wrong, you will tell them.
This is the Weekly Governance Voice, and we are so glad to keep on these conversations about really celebrating the people who make our organizations excellent in terms of matters governance and much more. Today we focus on the strategic importance of CSs, the corporate secretaries, as strategic advisors. What's really their mandate there as strategic advisors? And to help us on this is FCS Catherine Musakali, who has been in the limelight, especially when it comes to matters corporate secretaries. And thank you so much. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. I just mentioned your name, Catherine Musakali, FCS. It would be nice for people to know, maybe in less than a minute, who is this particular guest today, Catherine Musakali?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I am a lawyer by profession,
Yep.
but one who has focused more on corporate governance. I love corporate governance to bits. It makes me tick. I can be tired, but when I start talking about corporate governance, I light up.
Excellent.
So I have practiced for over 20 years, both law and governance.
Wow.
And I keep going. I am a mother, I'm a wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Quite succinct. Let's talk about the qualities that make a good CS, an effective strategic advisor to a board. Yes.
So first and foremost, corporate secretary
Yes.
is the advisor to the board
Yeah.
in matters corporate governance.
Yeah.
The corporate secretary is the person that the board members should turn to when they need advice on matters corporate governance.
You're right.
When the chairman is steering the board and needs guidance on what does the law say, what is best practice in matters corporate governance, they turn to the corporate secretary. And so the corporate secretary, first and foremost, needs to understand corporate governance.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing about corporate governance is that it is not all written down, because sometimes it is, what does the situation demand? So you've got to be able to think on your feet, put yourself in the position of the board member,
Yeah.
and then offer strategic advice. The corporate secretary has fiduciary duties.
Yeah.
Right? Like the board members, they do have fiduciary duties under the Act. The corporate secretary has the same sort of duties.
Okay.
Being a professional also, regulated by the Institute of Certified Secretaries, there is a code of conduct,
Yeah.
there are ethical considerations that we have to ensure we are following.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective of fiduciary duties, you're then able to advise the board. So think on your feet, be very ethical,
Yeah.
think in the best interest of the stakeholders.
Wow.
It's not just the best interest of the company,
Yes.
the shareholders, but the broader stakeholders, the employees, the customers, the shareholders, society as a whole. And when we talk about society now, we are thinking about future generations as well.
Yeah.
Because corporate governance is about making sure that current generations are able to meet their needs without compromising the ability of future generations to do the same.
Wow.
So be able to look ahead and advise the board in matters sustainability,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So those are some of the skills that I would think about.
Absolutely. I love the one of thinking on your feet, because as you have said, organizations are dynamic. There is no
Absolutely.
written rule that this is the only way things can happen.
Absolutely.
And especially in this era when crisis can pop up, all those things, you must be able to be strategically positioned to advise. Let's talk about also on advising the board on especially risk management and compliance. What is the process, or where do you see this being a role for a CS?
So some CSs are actually risk specialists as well. But you don't have to be a risk specialist to be a CS. However, for you to be a good CS, corporate secretary, you must understand the risk framework within which the company is operating in.
Right.
And because you have that helicopter view of, the totality of the risks, both from a strategic perspective as well as an operational perspective, you're better able to guide the board. When the technical guys, the risk management guys come to the board and say, hey, these are the risks that the company is facing. The corporate secretary should be able to turn to the board and say, yes, these are the risks. This is what you are required to do. But when I think about your fiduciary duties, there is something else you need to think about. So the corporate secretary, if I may use the words loosely, needs to understand the business from a totality perspective, have that helicopter view so that they can provide guidance to the board. So matters compliance. As a corporate secretary, you must understand what are the laws that this company or this institution operates under. What are the risks that come with non-compliance? If we don't comply with this, what does it mean for the company? What does it mean for its stakeholders? What does it mean for the board? What does it mean for me as the CS? And then from that perspective, you're able to advise the board.
Wow, I love that. In an early conversation I had here, we were talking about how CSs navigate between management and boards, and how to ensure there's a balance and all that. And we had quite a heated conversation, because we were trying to say some CSs are drawn from management to the board, and sometimes it can be a mess with the leadership, especially of the organization. I don't know what would be your statement on how corporate CSs or corporate secretaries, balance the advisory role between boards and senior management.
You draw the line when it comes to, I go back to the fiduciary duties. Yes, you are part of management. And here we are really talking about, there are two types of CSs. The in-house CSs, who are members of management, perhaps part of the leadership team reporting into the CEO. But then there's the second lot who are external CSs who may not necessarily report into the CEO. So what you raise is an issue that most of the time is faced by in-house CSs. So you are part of management, you're reporting into the CEO, and the CEO is the one making a presentation to the board. A presentation that perhaps is not aligned with the fiduciary duties of the board. The CS has to step outside of themselves and say, okay, in the best interest of the stakeholders. If I was sitting on the board, they always have to put themselves in the shoes of the board members. If I was sitting on this board, what would my advice be? I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I worked for Shell, the company, as their corporate secretary. And Shell, the company, decided to divest out of Kenya. And the employees decided to take the company to court. So who was advising the board? That was me.
That was you,
But at the same time, I am an employee. I am also interested in getting those benefits that the employees are agitating for. So you see, right there you see the conflict of interest that you face as a CS. And so where you find that the conflict of interest is so strong that you really don't feel that you should be advising the board, you should be able to say to the board, can you please get external advice on this matter? Because I am feeling conflicted
on this matter.
My mind. So that is where the issue of ethics also comes in, that you're able to say, here, I can't cross this line. I hope it helps.
No, that's a powerful one. I like the example, because it actually leads to what I would say my next question, which are some of the challenges that CSS face, in their ongoing work environment and what they're supposed to deliver. So over and above sometimes having to make ethical decisions on, listen, I cannot participate in this,
Yeah.
Is there any other one or two examples you could give us some of the challenges they face?
Just getting the board, a CS is supposed to be a trusted advisor.
You're right.
The board members are supposed to walk into that boardroom and feel that you have their back. That you'll raise issues when issues are going wrong, you will tell them. And so earning their trust is usually the first trust. Remember, the life of a board member is most likely 3 years, and then there's a rotation, you get new board members coming in. So you're constantly having to build trust with new people coming onto the board. That usually is the first challenge. So you're meeting this board member for the first time. How do you get them to trust you? How do you get them to rely on your word? How do you get them to know that you actually have their back and you raise issues that they need to raise? That is usually the first one.
You're right.
The second challenge that board CSs face is sometimes management see them as the person who goes and squeals to the board because of that fiduciary responsibility you have. So sometimes you'll be left out of decisions because at management level, because they feel this one is going to tell the board. so we better not talk to them. The third one is when you're sitting in board meetings, it is mastering that courage to be able to carry out your role. And I'll give you another example I faced earlier on in life. I was a company secretary of one of the boards here. And literally the board was fighting loggerheads properly. So we go into this one meeting and there are divergent views on the board. And the chairman gets triggered, and the chairman says, starts removing his jacket and say, "You cannot tell me that." So literally people are going to start fighting on the board, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, what do I do? So I look at the chairman and I'm like, "Chairman, can we have 5 minutes? Can we have 5 minutes, so that tempers can cool."
You're right.
So just that ability to drive the point that while I'm in the boardroom, people need to respect what I am telling them.
You're right.
Is another challenge that company secretaries face. So numerous challenges, but not insurmountable. It's an amazing practice. It is an interesting area of practice, and one that you can write the rules as you go along, because no one situation is ever the same.
So probably there's a CS watching and saying, I resonate with this, I can feel it, I have been there and all that. What would you tell them? Because probably they're saying, I wish I could get some tips on how to be overcome in these things. I know we have said a myriad of challenges, but are there some one or two things that you could say, this is how you overcome such kind of scenarios that you could share?
I think for me, the first one is that whole issue of earning trust. As a CS, one of the things that you must do is to network with the board members. You must understand what makes them tick. You have a group of 10, 11, 12 individuals joining this board. They think differently. They have different personalities. You're not going to divide yourself into 4 personalities or 5 personalities. You're going to have to work with all of the personalities. So for you to understand them and how you can satisfy each one of them, you must network with them.
Absolutely.
Understand what they like. Understand that board member A likes their board papers delivered in this manner. In the morning, before breakfast. But board member B, if you dare knock on his door before breakfast, he's going to bite off your head. So just that.
You've got to understand them, right?
You have got to understand them. So for you to understand them, get them in their informal settings. So that you understand them. Once you build that relationship with them, and once they get to understand that it is an adult to adult relationship with you, you've got your role to play, they've got their role to play, you need them, they need you, you're able to support each other. I think for me, that networking, any other challenge that you face, once you have built that relationship with them, you can actually overcome it. Because, again, nothing stops a CS from going to a board member and saying, you know what, I am facing this challenge. Can you help me?
Yeah.
But for you to be able to do that, you must be at a level where you're respecting each other as people
Absolutely.
who are able to work together.
Wow, thank you so much for those tips. And I want to believe they have been captured by some of the CSs who are listening in, and even aspiring CSs.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we're really talking about today, and really a key focus, is how a CS is a strategic advisor. And I wanted to throw in this question of emerging trends, because we're seeing a lot of things happening. I'm sure how you practiced some years back with your level of expertise is also changing because of the emerging trends that you've seen. And I wanted to ask you, what trends are you seeing in the governance landscape that will shape the future of CSs?
I think for me the first trend is really issues around technology. Issues around AI, issues around, just leveraging technology in relation to how boards operate. A few years ago, before COVID, for example, all board meetings were physical. You hardly ever found a board member who was insisting on a virtual board meeting. Very few, right? But right now,
it's the norm.
It's the norm. So, literally overnight with COVID, practice changed. But with that sort of change, we have to keep on as CSS, you have to keep on being ahead of the game in terms of where is AI going, where is technology going, what is the board likely to ask of me
Absolutely.
in matters AI. The second trend which I am seeing, of course, is data privacy. So matters data privacy. When the board is discussing some of these things, and governance touches on privacy a lot, what am I going to advise the board in terms of? Here in Kenya, our data privacy laws are still very new. So ensuring that you understand those trends, what is happening in the world with regard to data privacy, so that you can advise the board, absolutely important. Matters ESG. Is another area that you must understand as a CS, so that you can advise the board. But even before I move away, let me go back to technology. Robots and governance. In 2004, there was already a robot sitting on a board somewhere. In Kenya, we haven't had it. But that doesn't mean...
There's one serving meals in the restaurant. I saw that the other day.
yes, and the Westlands one, I think it's Westlands, So in governance, this robot was appointed to a board in 2004, right? Their term has been renewed, I think, 3 times now. It has not happened in Kenya. But as CSs, we need to start thinking about if that was to happen in Kenya, how do we react to that? How do we advise the board? What are the fiduciary duties of the robots? With technically AI, what are the rights and responsibilities of the robot? But the other trend which we are starting to see is that there are consultancy firms which are being set up purely for purposes of being directors on the board. And we've got to ask ourselves as CSs, what does that mean?
Absolutely.
It matters independence, it matters, responsibility to the stakeholders of the company. What exactly does that mean? Cybersecurity is another area that we as CSs must make sure that we are, focusing on. So that we can advise the board very, very much in that area. Human rights. And ESG now has been extended to human rights. So ESG is being seen as a human rights issue. Clearly understanding those 3 pillars so that we are able to advise the board. And what does that mean for a CS practice and for the board, and particularly the responsibilities is absolutely important. Transparency and disclosure is another trend. When we were growing up, when I was starting this practice, you didn't have to disclose anything.
Yes.
But right now, we know how much you earn.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
what does that mean for the board in terms of matters governance? As a CS, you've got to be, aligned to that.
Okay.
And just focusing on where the law and regulations are going as well is absolutely important. Like I said, as a CS, it's got to be that helicopter view and focusing on the future, focusing on innovation and being able to advise the board before matters hit the board, because we always say that the board should be future focused. It is the CS who makes sure that the board is future focused, because I draft the agenda, and I check with the chairman, but if I don't put in topics that are futuristic, chances are the board will not focus on the future.
Absolutely. And finally, I mean, this has been such an interesting conversation. Finally, as we close, I want you to address CS who's saying, I want to be this, and I want you to give them some advice of anyone who's saying, yes, I am a CS, but I want to be called that strategic advisor, What would you tell them in terms of aspirations to enhance their strategic advisory capabilities?
I would say that they should not see themselves as secretaries, because the term secretary has connotations around it.
Minutes or something?
Yeah. Writing minutes. I can sit in a meeting and somebody else, by the way, there's AI doing the minutes. So do you actually need me? You don't, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the role of the CS has transitioned from that secretarial taking of the minutes to the governance strategic advisor.
Wow.
That's where we add value.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to get into this field, please don't see yourself taking minutes. You can get anybody, and even that AI tool can be in the room and take those minutes for you.
Yeah.
It is, can I understand the business from a strategic point of view?
Yeah.
If there is one person in the company who should understand the strategy of the company, the future of the company, the risks facing the company, it should be the CS. And if you're not able to do that, then you cannot be a good CS. So think strategy, think the future, think advice, and remember, if I am to advise you, you have to be able to trust me and to rely on me. So how am I going to position myself so that I can send you the vibes as a board member that you can trust me?
Wow.
Yeah.
FCS Catherine Musakali, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Such an interesting conversation. At this rate, I feel like I should have considered as well to be a strategic CS advisor.
It's not too late.
It's not too late, right?
No. Anytime.
Anytime. There you have it. That's the conversation for the week with FCS Catherine Musakali, and she has put it very straightforward why this is a very noble profession, if I may call it that, and why boards and corporates need to consider having these strategic advisors in there. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much. See you next week.